Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Sunshine on the digital health team here at BMS, and I'm thrilled to kick off our first ever Digital Breakthrough for Pharma Summit. Woo! So thank you all so much for being here today. I know many of you traveled in from far away or had to clear your busy schedules to take time to be with us. And although I know I might be a little bit biased, I think you absolutely made the right choice. Because right now, as we're all really feeling pretty intimately, is we're living through a rather seismic shift. Last year alone, $25 billion was invested in digital health solutions. And while we're seeing many folks doing tons of cool, really innovative, interesting pilots with this technology, unfortunately, 85% of those pilots fail to scale. And along with that, we end up losing out on some incredible data and insights. And all that data just falls away into the ether, which only further contributes to the fact that today, 90% of healthcare data goes unused and underutilized. So we have to ask ourselves, what's holding us back? And I think the reality is, and the opportunity that we really all have in this room today, is to collaborate and start sharing more, start breaking down those silos. When data sits in fragmented places and siloed sources, we're not able to generate the same kinds of meaningful insights that are really needed to move forward and allow us to provide the best care for our patients and get better medicines to market faster. So that's why we're all here today. This is a great opportunity for us all to get to know each other, to really share, to collaborate, and really look forward to people sharing their bold ideas, honest reflections, and really move forward with some actionable momentum from here. So, just to give everyone an idea of who all is in the room, because everyone loves, a slide of exploding logos. But we have a pretty diverse array of folks from a number of different companies across tech and service providers and biopharma and health systems. If you scan the QR code on your badge, you'll also find a detailed list of all of the attendees in the room, who we encourage you to meet during one of our several networking breaks. We try to bake in a decent amount of time because that's really what today is about: sharing, reconnecting with old friends, making new ones, and building those relationships. We also do have an exhibitor hall that you'll see right through the glass doors where our training center is, where all the refreshments will be as well. Those are rooms 1070 and 1080, and you can see some of our wonderful exhibitors up there and really encourage you to go visit them, touch and feel some of those technologies that they're showcasing. I would also like to thank our wonderful planning and advisory committee. You can see up here, if anyone has any questions throughout the day, they're all present, and you'll see their name badge has a little yellow highlighter on it to help signify who they are. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Alexandra to walk us through the agenda.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Gonçalves. I'm the head of digital health here at BMS, and I would like to welcome you all here today. It's really a special day for us by having us together with our minds focused on what can we do more and what can we do above and beyond to serve better the patients. And we were just chatting, and we are always saying, we had never lived a time like this before. There's so much happening on digital and technology. It's our time, so we really have to grasp it on to the maximum extent and make things happen. And that's the time of today. So today one could say that we have a long day. I would prefer to say that we have a very fun day ahead. So we are ready to very engaging throughout the day conversations that will start very soon. And we'll start as you see there, from going beyond the buzz, talking about digital health solutions really in action, because that's really what we want to focus about. It's not about the excitement of the technology, it's what the technology will do and the impact that will have, and the impact that's having now, the impact that will have in a couple of years, and we'll end it up today with the impact that we'll have in 5 years. So throughout today, there's the starting on that, going really prioritizing some networking events, as Lauren was saying, so that's not too much to emphasize. That's a very important point for the day. So it's the exhibit hall is in the back, the food is also in the back, so I take the opportunity to emphasize that. We'll talk about barriers. So what are the barriers that are hampering us to do better? We talk about what are the patients thinking? How can we centralize ourselves more on our customers, being customers, healthcare providers, and ultimate customer, the patient. And we'll end at 3, the panel sessions with the future of digital health. So that's the future thinking piece. And then we have the opportunity to engage again in networking reception. So throughout today, there'll be time to connect, there'll be time to pause, there'll be time to reflect, and that's what we are here for. So thank you so much for being here. Very, very warm welcome to the BMS people and the people that are coming from the outside of our company. We couldn't be happier by having you here. And with that, I would like to introduce our Executive Vice President, Chief Digital and Technology for BMS, Meyers.
Thank you. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to BMS. Really, it's great to have everybody here. I was thinking on the way in about, the word breakthroughs. We throw it around a lot, and a lot of times we think that means coming up with new ideas. But I actually think, let me just do a quick survey. How many people in the room, like your day job, primarily involves trying to convince practitioners, life sciences companies to do something that they're otherwise not comfortable doing, like just in your day-to-day job? Raise your hand. Okay. And how many of you maybe have had an experience in the last 6 months, a year, that this is way more frustrating and more difficult than it probably needs to be? Yeah. And you'll talk about barriers today, but to me, I think breakthrough really is about trying to pay attention of how you cut through some of the inertia. And if you think about these habits, they're pretty sticky that occur in healthcare and just in everyday life. I mean, even things that you may not notice. Probably all of you have got at least 1 or 2 devices on you right now with a keyboard on it that starts off QWERTY, and that exists because in the mid-19th century, someone thought, let's create a design to slow typists down so that mechanical keyboards don't clog up. That's the reason why we have the QWERTY keyboard 150 years later. Some of you may have come in, well, some of you may share business cards today, right, as part of this networking event. The size of those cards are really the size that they are because of the 1950s. A thing called a Rolodex was invented, and that's the size that you needed to fit into a Rolodex. Yet these are the size of our business cards today. Some of you may have taken a train in to get here today if you live in New York City. And what you may not notice is that the rails that you came in on are the exact width of 2 Roman horses' asses, because that was what basically set the size for Roman chariots. And today that's really what sets the 4-foot, 8.5-inch standard that is the US rail system. If you drove in today and you drove on the right-hand side of the road, that's because the French revolutionists decided to cause problems in Paris because all the French aristocrats rode their carriages on the left side of the thing. So this is a long way of saying there's just a lot of friction and habit that goes into everything. And in healthcare, it's really no different. Today's standard of care is tomorrow's barbarism. George Washington died not on the battlefield or not of an infection, but the standard of care, which at the time to treat a throat infection was to do bloodletting, and that's how he died. If you think about most of the FDA rules that govern pharma today, they really came from a very common standard that occurred in the time in Europe to treat pregnant women for morning sickness with thalidomide. So these are the things that are the history of how things progress. Now, the positive news about all this is things do change. And if you think about in the last 100 years, we've added 20 years of life expectancy, almost 25 years of life expectancy. And that's due to innovations that we found in our industry around antibiotics, vaccines, synthetic insulin. So these sorts of things have created small, large molecules, have really created expansion of life expectancy. And if you think about a generation ago in cancer care, the only choices were, surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation therapy. And today, you have immunotherapy, you have cell therapy, you have antibody-drug conjugates, you have radionucleotides, we have bispecifics, trispecifics. Pretty soon, we'll have gene therapy. So you really think about the pace of innovation in science. I personally think there's never been a more exciting time to be in life sciences and healthcare right now. If you think about the technological change we're facing, for those of you using LLMs today in 2025, they're about 1,000 times larger than they were in 2022 when the first generation of them came due. And what took months to train back then now takes days to train similar size models. So you're seeing this huge tailwind associated with technology that's really very compelling. And then when you look at, probably there's never been a better time for that to occur. If you look at the demographics, we have an aging population who's getting older and getting sicker. We'll have twice as many people on Earth with cancer in 25 years than we have today. And in that same amount of time, about 1 out of every 3 people on Earth will have either some form of dementia or neurodegeneration disease. So the ability to bring technology, science all together to make a difference for patients has never been really greater than it is today. And so when you think about also costs, I think all of us, especially if you're in pharma, are feeling a lot of the pressure from costs. And that really is not going to change. We spend 20-something% of GDP in the US on healthcare. And while Europe is half of that, it's growing twice as fast as the US. And that's not going to be helpful as you have an older population. So this sort of confluence of breakthroughs in science and technology, these things are all coming together to really create breakthroughs for patients. But it is important to point out that everything that we do and the way that we do them, it really is probably going to change. And I think what's great about everybody in this room is that you're looking at sort of these cutting-edge new ways of being able to change the way we diagnose, treat, and monitor patients. And we have to be really humble in our industry. For example, just aspirin, which is a 150-year-old drug. We know sort of how it works. We know it provides cardioprotection. It does sort of platelet aggregation, but we don't know exactly how the platelet aggregation works and why it's selective. IL-23, we know that works pretty durably in psoriasis, but only works in 20% of ulcerative colitis. We don't really know why that is. And when you really think about things like lung cancer patients, deadliest form of cancer, 75% of those patients will get probably 5 years to live upon diagnosis, and they'll fail on 4 or 5 lines of treatment before they find something that works. That's not something they really have time to do. There is a lot of hidden data and technology inside and trying to figure out why some patients will respond and other ones won't. So it's not just bringing therapeutic innovations, which we're all doing. I mentioned them earlier. But I think in 20 years, just being able to ship a molecule alone in our industry won't be enough. When you think about the onslaught of real-world data, the ability to see why a drug works in some patients and not others, when to dose it, how to monitor for safety events, how to de-risk those things. This is all coming, and a lot of the work that you guys do is in the forefront and trying to elucidate deeper biological insights other than just we know how a drug worked in a trial that was done 10 years ago in a placebo-controlled trial. We can do better than that, and I think a lot of what you're doing is doing that. So when you think about today, really think about breakthroughs and ask yourself, how can you actually, in an industry where fax machines are still the primary way doctors communicate with one another, you think about how do you try to leapfrog over that and deliver innovations in a world where maybe a fax machine's still involved. So with that, I wish you guys a good conference. I'll see you guys a little later for happy hour, and I'll turn it back over to Lauren.